Well, the political economist and author Moeletsi Mbeki is in studio with me this evening. It is extraordinary how this scourge of xenophobia, is it Afrophobia, is it criminality, whatever it might be, I'd be interested in your classification of it, does rear its head from time to time. We've just been through the most recent round of it.
Well, as you know, we have lots and lots, thousands actually in every year of demonstrations in poor neighborhoods in South Africa. So when it involves foreigners, people pay a bit more attention. But these demonstrations happen sometimes daily, in fact, almost daily. When you listen to a traffic report in the morning, inevitably there is a demonstration going on somewhere in the country.
It's the only way people believe that they get heard is to burn a tire, block a road. At least that way somebody pays attention. A little bit like, anybody who doesn't get attention, they start making a fuss. And we're seeing this happen on a daily basis. But it's got an ugly undertone, and that is the undertone of targeting anybody to blame. And if we can't blame the state, if the state is armed with big guns, we take it out on our neighbours. And our neighbours, in many cases, may very well be foreign Africans.
Well, we take it out on lots of people. I mean, the poor people take it out on lots of people. So I'm very reluctant myself with the labels that get thrown around as to what is this that is happening. The reality, as I say, is there are thousands every year of demonstrations. The main casualties, ironically, are the police. They are the people who are exposed to the violence by the poor South Africans who are unhappy with their condition.
It's the thin blue line between chaos and order. It's the thin blue line that is the police, who are expected somehow to contain what is a social crisis.
It is a major crisis.
Is it social or is it political? Because in many cases,
it's not just a South African crisis. You see, people are looking at one side of the equation. Why do we have so many people from all over the world living in poor neighborhoods in South Africa, especially in the Gauteng region of South Africa? To me, that's the first question I have to ask myself. I read somewhere that there are 200,000 Nigerians in South Africa. Why do we have 200,000 Nigerians in South Africa? We certainly don't have 200,000 South Africans in Nigeria. So to me, that's the first question. Why do Somalis walk, or Ethiopians walk all the way from the Horn of Africa to South Africa? Why are the Bangladeshi and the Pakistanis in the poor neighborhoods of South Africa? These are the questions that one has to start to address.
Anecdotally, one would assume it's because they would see economic opportunities as being better for themselves, prospects for their families being better here than at home. I mean, South Africa has always been a melting pot of people seeking opportunity. Gauteng, the very name, suggests this is the land, the city, the region of opportunity. It is where people have congregated since 1886, when George Harrison found some gold-bearing rock on the Witwatersrand. It's the promise, and that promise is not fulfilled. And that promise is certainly not being fulfilled for people who believe that they belong here at the expense of others. Isn't that a problem?
Well, it's not a problem, it's a reality. The reality is that South Africa has a mass of poor people. According to statistics I got recently from the Auditor General, half of the working age population of South Africa does not work. No. So, and it is migrating to the big cities. And then on top of that, you are having other people from all over the world migrating to South African cities. So these conflicts are built into that equation.
But migration is a global phenomenon. It's been a phenomenon since the days of Marco Polo. It's been a phenomenon either through conquest or through economic migration throughout the ages. The United States is a country of immigrants. You go into London, for example, and no two people look the same. Migration in search of economic prosperity is a reality. It's a global phenomenon, right?
But so has genocide against indigenous peoples. Where are the Native Americans today in the United States? Many of them were slaughtered in the 18th, 19th, and 17th century. So those are the conflicts that are built into migration.
We remain a magnet for people looking for hope. How do we deal with an influx of people who come looking for hope and in many cases have got the skills, the wherewithal, the courage to start their own businesses, to stand out in communities that feel dispossessed, and suddenly, hold on a second, but these guys from Somalia are making a living where I can't. That's not fair, that's not right. And I turn my attention on the invaders, as I might see them, and take my frustration out on them.
Yes, the question of leadership is very, very important in that issue. What is our own government doing to overcome unemployment, to address the issues of the poor in South Africa? Those are the primary challenges for South Africa. Now, can we solve Nigeria's poverty problems? Can we solve the DRC's poverty problems? Can we solve Zimbabwe's poverty problem? Of course not. We can't solve their problems. So you are faced with a second question then is, what do we do with the instability on the African continent that is leading to instability in South Africa? What should we do about it?
What should we do?
Well, we have to do something. We can't just sit on our hands.
Once Donald Trump's finished building his wall, do we get those guys to come and build a wall across our borders? That's not feasible, sustainable, or anything like that. Somehow, we need to get this continent working for more of its people.
We have to get Africa to work properly. We can't afford a situation where Robert Mugabe and ZANU-PF destroy their own economy and then expect South Africa to receive all the people who were displaced from destroying their own economy. So these are big political and diplomatic issues which the South African government is faced with. It thinks it can pass on that problem to the poor in South Africa. That is where your problem comes in, is that the government, instead of tackling Mugabe destroying his country's economy to make sure it doesn't happen, it says, well, we will sit on our hands, do nothing about that. Anyway, the problem will be passed on to the poor in South Africa. So the poor in South Africa are paying the price of the inability of our government to make sure Africa works.
I saw we sit with a problem where foreign nationals or people who are not South African, other Africans, are feeling increasingly vulnerable in our country. We see the consequences of that playing out with an isolated incident in Abuja, just the frustration or the response against a South African company of MTN in Abuja. I mean, should we be concerned of the knock-on ramifications across this continent?
Well, of course, attacks on South African property or property of South Africans in other countries is something to be concerned about. And it's the responsibility of those governments to protect South African properties in their own countries.
As we should be protecting foreign people living in South Africa.
Absolutely. But the issue is that what I'm saying is that we have to address the fundamentals of the problem, which is the failing economies in many African countries like Nigeria, which is what is now, they are exporting their problems to South Africa, they are exporting their problems to the United States, to other countries, to England, and so on. Now, that is where the problem should be tackled at the source.
But where should it be tackled? I mean,
it has to be tackled in Nigeria.
The purpose of the African Union was to try and encourage countries to work together, to cooperate on matters of mutual interest.
Actually, it's a good point that you are making here. We saw a potential meltdown coming in Gambia a couple of months ago. The countries in West Africa intervened, sent in their armies. Why? Because they didn't want the Gambians to become migrants in the neighboring countries and fuel instability in the neighborhoods.
We've proven it can work.
It can be done now. The point is we are seeing regimes like the ZANU-PF regime creating the mayhem that the Gambian regime was trying to create to stay in power. But what do? We fold our hands and we have all sorts of sophisticated formulae explaining away what is the white farmer is responsible for Mugabe losing power. to the opposition MDC, all those kinds of nonsensical explanations, and then we sit around and do nothing. The West Africans showed you have to do something, and they did it. Why are we not doing something in South Africa? South Africa and Botswana are the hosts of huge number of migrants. Well, we have to, both South Africa and Botswana have to tackle the problem and Zambia and do something about it.